Hey guys, this is Clyde here at Leechburg Lights, and I'm actually live tonight. That'll give you something. That'll give you something to laugh at. First thing I want to say is xLights is an amazing program. To go to the download page and download the most recent production version or the most recent beta version, which was just uploaded this morning and this afternoon, version 2017.1 and 2, which I believe 20.2 is now the edition that works with 64-bit, and a lot of updates and bug fixes have been put in. So the other thing I want to point out is there is on the download page, xlights.org is the donate button, and I encourage you all to go in and make a donation to xLights for all the work that Keith, Gil, Sean, Dan, Dave, and many others have put into the program. So I thank you guys for all of that. So basically, I want to do a rehash of last week's Morph little bit of training session, and I also wanted to go over the explosion effect. I call it the explosion effect, but it's actually the shockwave effect. So what I'm going to start with is a walkthrough of the Morph Effect, and if all of you, a couple of you had jumped on early to pick up some of the information to get onto the call, and I was in here playing and just doing some stuff as I was running a little bit of sequencing in the song that I picked up. There are a couple things in your xLights directory. One of them is the xLights _ key bindings folder. Maybe I can pull that up real quick. It's an XML. It's an XML file, and it's usually way at the bottom. And if you go to your key bindings file, you can create, and I have a video on this on my channel, you can open with Notepad++, which is a free program you can download. You can add in all kinds of extra shortcut keys to quickly get to the effects that you want to use consistently pretty quickly. I think it ends at T for text, or X for text, and capital S for spirals. I added a lot of these other ones in. And all you have to do is you have to know the name of the effect just by hovering over it. It should tell you. And you just copy this line and paste it down below. But that's, if you don't see me, click and drag from, let me close this up here. If you don't see me, go up here to Morph and click and drag it down here to do whatever I want it to do. It's usually because I'm just selecting and I'm pushing the M for morph to create the morph. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you. Next is the Effects Assist screen, which is very helpful. The last week we learned that this may not show up very clear to you on your screen, but for me, this is a graphical representation of my megatree. If I click on this, for example, this should be a morph effect here. This is the saved, let me scroll over here. Let's grab this and actually I'll just hit M. There we go. And I will get rid of the repeats. So what this is a graphical representation of the megatree, and whenever you select the box, it selects the pixels within that box to represent where the morph will start and end. The Effects Assist screen can be reached by going into View, Windows, Effects Assist, and that should bring it up for you. Or take it away. And from this view, you're able to pick any specific area of the megatree that you want to accentuate or highlight or light up in any kind of manner. I originally had done there's another copy of the exact same morph. I just copied it and placed it in in place of it. You can do these different kinds of layers, and that's what this up here, this layers blending screen you see here. If it's a box that's available for you to make edits to your different layers throughout the models and so forth, or through the different effects. I usually leave this as normal. There are a couple different options, and Steve has already done a video on the different parts of the layer blending screen, so you're more than welcome to get on. I'll probably find a way to link that to the video whenever Tom does the production and uploads it. So as far as the morph effect goes, I think one of the biggest things that people like to do is they will get on the ChristmasSequences.com website, and they'll purchase a sequence that's made for the CCR strip tree, or they'll want to recreate some of the effects from that. And one of the ways to do that is using the Effects Assist screen and the morph effects settings. We have a start, an end, and an options, and then the Effects Assist screen itself. So real quick, I'll walk through the way to use this screen very quickly that Gil set up, because this is Gil's effect. When you single click left anywhere on the screen, that's your start point. So you have to think of your start point as always your left mouse click. Doesn't matter where, if you just click one time, that's the start point. Whenever you click and drag, that is your first start point and your second start point. And whenever you right click, that's your end point. So you can click and drag, or you can click. It doesn't matter. So if we want to start here, we left click. If we want to end here, we right click. So you can see live time. Here, I'll delete this so it's not as confusing. So you can see here live time how just one move of the mouse creates specific morph in the area of the tree that you want to create it in. Now, how is this helpful to have the morph with one single string going up and down the tree? And what we can do is we can go to this options tab, and there are options on here such as the head duration, how long the head actually lasts through the entire effect. I'll slide this over. This is considered the head here. I'll go ahead and zoom in, zoom out. This is considered the head, and this is considered the tail. If you increase the head, actually it doesn't graphically represent it here. It just makes it appear longer through the entire effect. If you look at the model preview, where this graphical representation comes in is if you click the start and or end tab. Actually, it should be there. It should be. Yeah, that's it. That's right. I thought so. There's the graphical representation of the length of the head. You notice that the morph isn't as long, but it's more of the head color. And let me get, I think I have a transition out. No, I don't. 0. Okay. Sorry about that. So let's go to a color palette. I started with colors the last time, and I think that's a good place to start again here. Oops. Let's get rid of some of this. This is, for all intents and purposes, a kind of a standard morph. Around 20 is usually the morph head time. Oh, I want to get rid of sparkle too. There we go. And with this in mind, you're looking at basically a simple single line run. And to make the morph longer, the head longer or shorter, you just make your adjustment here. If you want to show the color of the head of the morph a little bit more, you add to the head length here. And what this does is it makes it longer here. Let me slow the morph down by expanding it. You can see the head's pretty prominent at the bottom, but it's also pretty small at the top. So if we go to the end, we have one is set. If we make this a little longer, you can see now the head is a lot more prominent. So what this head length does, this is what I termed as the same thing as a value curve. This is a value curve here where this changes this per whatever you set it to. And the value curve between the start and the end, it actually takes the distance between the start, this is set at 12, and it moves it from 12 at the beginning to 47 at the end. And that's the representation of the head length at the beginning and the end of the morph. So that would be your settings that you've created or you set up for yourself. Now, once again, the head duration here, this is, if you want the morph to be shorter, then you pull the head length all the way up to the top, and it's only going to show the head. The head's only going to be the first color, and the tail are going to be the last two colors or the last one color. Let me do a little better job at that. So the head's the first color, the tail is the second color. If you had a third color, these two colors meld together, and I'll show you that right here. If you add a fourth color, then the first two colors meld together and the second two colors meld together. So you'll notice that I've created, and I'm going to minimize this a little bit here. Let's do this. I have this color palette here I've devised and created over a period of time of sequencing that I can go in and click and save a color palette if I like something. So usually whenever I'm doing a morph and I want to create something similar to some of the superstar effects that are available, I will select something with white is the head and a double color for the tail. That's usually what I'll do, because that's usually how the morphs tend to show up from the imports from the superstar sequencer. Now, as far as sequencing goes with the options tab, once again, we only have one string going up here. Now, why is this significant? Because most people, when they sequence with morph, it's very common for them to think, okay, well, I want it to sweep the whole way up the tree from the bottom to the top. So to do that, I'm just going to click and drag. That's the beginning, and then the end is at the top of the tree. So I start at the bottom and I'm sweeping up to the top. And this is how most people will typically generate their morph through their tree or through their whole house model or through their arches and whatever. The reason that we have this option is because when we go ahead and we just select one single line of pixels that we want to run up and down, we don't have to double click and go down here to the strand level and turn that one strand level on, just such as that. We have this option of selecting it in the Effects Assist screen, and you don't have to go down to the node level in order to do any sequencing unless there's something very specific that you're trying to accomplish. So when we take this individual single line here, let me fix it real quick and go right to the edge. We have these other sliders that are available to us. The acceleration, I really can't define the acceleration well for you guys. It's something you just have to play with it. Kind of, the more acceleration you have, it's slow to start and then it takes off real quick at the end. So it's kind of like an explosive ending, or you can delay it. It can be really, really slow or really fast to take off, and then it just zips across and disappears. So I really don't use that very much, but I do use the repeat count, repeat skip, and the stagger. Whenever you look at using the repeat count, what you're looking at is xLights has a buffer. It has this effect that it's saved in its buffer, and what it's going to do is it's going to repeat whatever you have set up in here to have repeated. So we have a single strand. If we want to repeat that across the entire tree, all we have to do is slide how many times. Oops, I got the stagger on. I'll get rid of that. And one. Okay, start over. Okay, so you have one strip or one string going straight up the tree. If you do the repeat count, it's going to repeat straight across the mega tree for the number of times that you tell it to repeat. So you could have 2, 5, 10, 15, 20. Now keep in mind my megatree is it's 32 wide by 50 pixels tall. So it's representing my megatree, and this is the very first pixel in my megatree. This is the very top last pixel in my megatree on the first string, that is. So I've repeated 20 strings in, so there's 32. If I go to 31, because this is the first one, if I repeat it 31 times, that's every string on my mega tree. That's doing a full sweep. That's the exact same thing as me doing a click and drag, start, click and drag, end. That's the exact same thing as what I just did. But why this is important is because with the repeat count, let's say I don't want every single bulb to go off and I want to repeat the skip. Let's just do it 3 times. You can see 3 or 4 strings are lit up there. We can skip spaces in between each and every line, and that's the number of spaces. So this is string number 1, we'll say, and then now I'm skipping 8 skips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now what the effect is doing is it's creating a start point and moving it over here. So that's how we have this skip. So we have this kind of interesting separation where you can create this effect with a very, very simple single line, and you're basically copying and pasting the exact same effect, but only using one version of the effect here. So the repeat skip is kind of interesting because it's very powerful. It takes something and it copies it without having to copy the whole effect. So now stagger, where stagger comes in, is if you slide it to the right, you get this kind of drum roll or piano roll or left to right travel motion. There is also a negative side to this. You can go the opposite way, and you can create the effect backwards. So it will start on the opposite side and roll backwards. So if you're doing something where you want to have, let's say, one color coming down, let's just say that's the effect there. Now I'm going to hit the M button. Whoops. I'm going to hit the M button. I'm going to change the color. But I want it to go the other way. It sets it off. It actually is using the same strings. Let's adjust the skip to 9. So now you can see how it's repeating the same thing, but it's going backwards or doing kind of the opposite thing. Now, where this comes in neat is, let's go ahead and get rid of this one. Where this comes in neat is if you want to not skip and you want to use the full thing. I have 31 strings beyond this extra one here. So 31 times. You can see how it does a full sweep all the way across the entire mega tree. You can add more to the stagger, or you can add less to the stagger. If you want a slower morph, you just make the morph longer. And then once again, if you're looking for a difference in the morph, you can add the skip. The skip is nice. It gives it a kind of a different appearance. So this is just one of the applications. I think if I were to come over here, let's see. I'm going to go ahead. Let's show you how this works here. Whenever you want to add layers into your mega tree, so that you can add more layers of work.
Clyde,
yes.
Really quick question. When you were doing the demonstration of the 2 different colors, you changed the stagger.
Yes.
You offset it. Based on just the simulation, it looked like the very first one still was on the same one. Is there a way to offset it?
Yeah, well, there is. I mean, it's simple. Like here, I'll take this for example. When you have the entire morph the way you want it, like it's going the way I want it to, you can create the exact same morph. Like I said, I'm using a shortcut key, and it's identical. This is the same as the other. Now, I'm going to change the color. So I have 2 different colors, but it doesn't render the same because they're doing exactly the same thing. If I put a negative here, you'll see the change.
I see. Okay.
Okay. So I haven't changed anything other than, now you can also change the skip. I did change the skip on that, I think. Maybe it was 3.
You know what, that might have been it. You were changing.
Yeah,
It was the skip.
settings, I play with settings all the time, so sometimes I'll do something and I'll forget what I did. So it just creates a different kind of effect. Now, if you want them to mold together a different way, you can make them shorter, obviously. You can do a lot of things with them. And the only way that you're going to learn how to do some of this stuff is if you actually just jump in. This is the off effect right here, the off effect of capital O. It plays the whole effect for you whenever you have it underneath everything. So you can have a good idea of what's going on when you're doing the effect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So what I was going to show is adding multiple layers or inserting multiple layers below. In insert multiple layers below. There we go. It'll bring up this dialog box here. But I'm going to put 20 in here. Now that's odd. Most people are going to be like, what am I going to do with 20 layers? Well, when you do use some of the superstar sequences, what I did was I created random effects, or not created random effects. I created effect presets. That's what I did. And I have a list of them here. I was able to extract a couple that I really liked. So here's an example of one. So this gives you an idea of what you might have paid for if you purchased one of their sequences. So this is the whole effect. And basically, if I select one of these, you can see, let's see, this one here is a better representation. This here is one specific effect with the morph effect. And what xLights did was it extracted the effect that was created in Superstar and it split it among all of these different morphs. I want to grab another one though because this one isn't very conducive to what I want to show you. Nope, that's not it either. This will work, maybe. Yeah, that's not it either. This works. This is an example of a very simple morph that uses the same principle as the repeat/skip. It starts with this effect right here, and then it takes the same effect and it moves it up and picks the same kind of an area, and then this effect right here, which is moved down. So they're all the same. They're the exact same morph. The only difference is we can actually recreate this with only one line. If we take this, make it smaller, copy. Now I'm going to delete them, and I'm just going to paste. There we go. So we have the one at the bottom, and I can get rid of this now. So you have the one at the bottom, and we want to recreate this exact same thing. All we have to do is go to the options, and we can repeat count twice because we've already got one. We want to repeat it twice, and let's go ahead and add our skips in. And it should be taking off, and I don't know why it isn't. Oh, wait. Let's... And I thought this was going to be easy.
Clyde, lower the repeat count back down to 2 and
Yeah.
then increase the skips as it should.
Yeah, it should. I don't know why it's not.
I don't
It
think
does-
you clicked onto the effect.
That could be. That could be very well. I only need 3. Boy, I really look good right now, don't I? That should work.
It's not the stagger part of it.
Well, it's working. if I do single line, see it's doing it, but it doesn't want to do that representation. It should be doing that. I don't know why it's not.
Could be a bug.
Could be a bug. Yes, it could be. I've actually done this before. I've used that. I recreated that effect. I couldn't tell you how many times. Yeah, that's odd. I mean, I could do it this way. Oop. I mean, I know I can get that. Oops. How about I do it this way and this way? Yeah, see, it should be able to do that. And then add the stagger in where it does each one slowly. This is a really short effect. And the repeat skip gives a space in between. I mean, it should work. I don't understand why it's not working. It might be a bug. So once again, it's just with the morph effect, it's more about practicing using the repeat count, the repeat skip, and the stagger. The acceleration is at your discretion, and then also the head lengths, knowing when you want a longer head length in between there. Like this doesn't really have a head because it does have a head, but it doesn't have a different colored head. And then you have the end length right here, which the length of the head at the end. So those are your major points whenever it comes to the morph effect. Is there any questions that you guys have concerning the morph effect before I move on?
Before you move on, if you could highlight your waveform from 1.75 to 3, and just play that. Because right now what we're just seeing is the effect over and over and over. What I'd like to see is how it reacts when you actually play it.
Oh, sure. There's a sequencing element where you're trying to match it up and make it fit to what you're doing. I turned it down here because it was real loud. Let me turn that up. Oops, that's not the mixer. There's the mixer. Okay. Shake up the happiness. So we're looking at a real small slice of time here. So if I take this and I copy this and I paste it and I change the color of it to something different, and then I do it again, you can really quickly create different morphs to create kind of a different effect over different areas. So I'll go ahead and move this out of the way. Shake up the happy. So basically, shake up the happiness. I did this here as well. Wake up the happiness. Shake up the happiness. So using the morph is, I mean, there's so many things that you can do. This was something I was doing before we got on the call. This one here was something we were doing before I got on the call, where you ask for how do you do this with the music. This is one effect. If I bring down the, did I close it out? I think I closed it out. Windows. I only selected the first 3 strings of the megatree, and I used the repeat count 3 times. I added 8 spaces in between them, so I'm only getting 4 kind of rocket launches across the whole megatree. And then I have this this other return effect, which is just a full sweep up. And then I added the smiley face picture with sparkles. So So I'm walking across the mega tree while it's saying musical phrase. And I mean, that literally, I don't know who was watching me while I was doing it, but I mean, it took me like a minute to create this effect right here. Any other good questions like that? I like that.
A second ago, you popped up a menu where you had a selection of stuff that you had saved and then drug it into the layers. Where was that again?
Okay, that is the effects preset. If you, anywhere on your sequence editor, I'm sorry, the sequencer tab, right click and you can get to the effects presets. And I have a lot of presets I've been saving for the past year. Steve would call this his gravy. If you ever get a hold of these, you're in trouble because there's a lot of good stuff. But after you do this a lot, you can begin creating your own effects or saving your own effects. Therefore, you don't have to recreate them. I actually find it easier just to recreate them because I know what I want to do and I know how the tool works. So once you figure it out, it's a whole lot easier. But let's say, for example, I wanted to save this as a shortcut. I like what this does. This is a neat effect. So I want to save it. And to do so, what I would do, I'll start from the beginning. I will select all of it. I'll right click and I'll go to Effect Presets and I'll select my mega tree because this is what I'm sequencing from. I can click on New Presets and then I can label this whatever I want to label it, and it'll save it as whatever I save that as. When you scroll to the bottom, it shows, I don't know, this number was supposed to be representative of how many layers it took to lay this back down. It should say 3. It says 58. That's a bug.
It is.
I don't know what. It did work at one time. I think it's just broken now. But then to activate that effect somewhere else later on in the sequence, all you do is select a single square. If you have an area selected, it will not lay down. Select one single timing area, double click on the effect, and it brings it right up for you.
Do save one, you need, and give it to someone, you need to tell them how many layers they need to have, because if they don't have that many layers, it will not only lay it down over the mega tree, but it'll lay it down over other elements as well.
Mm-hmm. Correct. I think this is one of those type of effects where I have a bunch of them that were created, and now I know that I really could recreate this using just one of each effect. I could just use the skip and it would do it for me. So a lot of these I've been able to learn how to do them without having to do this, but I saved a lot so that I didn't have to do double or extra work through everything. Wake up the hell! So some more questions? This is one of my favorite effects. I use Morph in a lot of things that that you just don't expect to use it in. Last week, I think Jeff mentioned, could you use this in your arches? And by all means, you can use it in your arches. You can use it on absolutely every prop that's in your entire display. So if there's anybody else that has a question about Morph or how to do something with the mega tree, go ahead and ask it now. I'm going to move on. So I'll go ahead and move on to Shockwave. Shockwave is a pretty simple effect. If you're trying to create like an explosion, I actually like the idea of thinking of it as an explosion. Where's my? I had a thing open here. Hold on a second. There it is. In the key bindings file, whenever I created my key bindings, I added shockwave to it because I ended up using the explosion part a lot. So if I edit with Notepad, you can see how I saved it in there. Shockwave is the lowercase e. And the only thing I could think of to remember that was E for explosion. So that's why I always say explosion. And coincidentally, single line or single strand, I saved that as A because I usually use those for my arches. So just something interesting for you to know that you can add those yourself. Or if you'd like, I can send you a copy of it. It's no big deal. It's just the XML file, and it'll work just fine in yours. So when we open up and we actually do the shockwave effect, there's no header tail or anything like the morph effect. Basically, one of the biggest challenges I had was how do I explode the entire tree? I want to start in the center and I want to explode the whole thing. Well, as you can see, I'm not exploding the whole thing, or the settings don't exactly come out natively to do what you want them to do. That's where these radius come in, the radius and the width. The first radius number 1, is what it starts as. So whenever the explosion starts, that's how big it is when it starts. And it's set to 1 by default. The radius at the end is usually set to 10. So this is the distance that it's going to explode at. If you want a bigger explosion, this is whenever you make this bigger. It will cover more area. So the width, the difference between the radius and the width is now we're talking about the actual fallout, the actual thickness of the explosion. So this is how thick it is. It starts at 1 and it grows to only 10. So you have once again this curve that it's going to travel to. It's going to travel from this to this from the beginning to the end of the effect. So if you want more thickness, you create a thicker thickness around it that lasts longer, or you can start it really thick where you don't see the middle. It's not like a defined point where you're just doing kind of a fade from the center to the outside using different colors. I find a lot of uses for this whenever you hear at the beginning of this song, this perfect example. That ding, 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 ding would be a perfect way for me to do a little, just little tiny ones and making them much smaller. And thinner. And this is where the center X and the center Y, the axes come in, because you can, once you nail out your beat, so here's this, we can copy this, we can paste this, and then we can go in and we can change the location on the grid where it's going to explode at. And I'll put another one down and I'll put that there. So you can see how easy it is to come up with something simple to do whenever you have like a cymbal crashing or whatever. That's what I like to use those for whenever you're accentuating like a specific beat. If it's something that's a little bigger, actually we can do that right here. Right there. And we want it to be right in the middle of the tree, and we want it to go from really small to really big, and we want it a little bit thicker. And let's change the colors. So using this specific effect, using the shockwave effect, you have a lot of options for explosiveness. There's also a couple options that go with this, and I usually leave the blend edges. The difference between the two are you can tell a clear change where it's not so soft between the layers. So if you have the position here, your position set to whatever, it's going to not be as soft or as fluttery, I guess you could say, where you blend the edges and where it looks like it has more of a fade out, has more of a smooth transition from the start to the finish. Then there's the acceleration. Once again, it starts slower and then it does more of an explosion towards the end, or the reverse, where it explodes at the beginning and then trails off slowly.
Can you make it implode?
You can, and I was just about to show. Instead of using the explosion part, which I always call, like I said, I call it explode or E, you can always implode, and all you have to do is just reverse. So bringing your radius, your start radius out to here, say, it'll start at the model level here, and it'll end with a small ending. So it does the implosion, and once again, you can do the same thing. You can make it thick at the beginning and thin as it goes in. So let's go ahead and lay that down. E for explosion. So you get the best of both worlds. You can do one or the other. And so there's no direction that you're looking at going that you can't do. And once again, you know, whenever I see this, I think of somebody sucking on a straw and just a little bit of drink left at the bottom of the glass. So there's 100 different applications for the end of the song, and you can hear the song's ending, and you see that's physically, that's what I could see happening is, okay, like the raindrop just dropped and now the water's, you know, calm again and everything's off. So that's kind of the effect, the way that I like to look at the effect whenever I do my sequencing. Thanks to Jeff, by the way.
In that effect, it looks like you've got a white color selected, and maybe it's just not coming through the video on my end. Mm-hmm. But is there a white effect in there? Or okay, there it is.
Yeah, it doesn't, like your screenshots is not as good a quality as what I'm seeing. The hope is that you guys can have this opened up and you can do some of this while we're walking through it, or at least go back and look at it later, because the definition of the recording is not going to be near as good as the definition that's on your screen. We learned that last week. But that's a great question. That's the ability to change these effects are just phenomenal. And another thing too, you can go in here and you can copy these and paste these forever. You can have layer upon layer that you can go in and change, and then if you go up here and you change your colors, and you can really give it some interesting looks. I mean, color is one of the major things that whenever you're sequencing, you can have the same effect, but and you can have it do different things, but whenever you change the color to a key change, for example, whenever the key changes in the song, that's a good time to, okay, color change, key change. It gives you something to play with whenever you're doing some sequencing. Any other good questions you got out there? Or any questions, period, I don't care. Jeff, don't laugh. It's not funny. You're the best.
I'm muted. How did you know I was laughing?
Because I could see it in the chat.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
No, I realized I walked away for a drink of water and I heard my name and I was like, what I missed. So I totally, I missed something. No,
yeah, you're gonna have to watch it on the review. I was saying so many mean things about you.
Yeah, it's you and the rest of the world.
I could go into a lot more detail with, I could go into some more detail into some other effects if you guys want me to. Is there anything that you guys want to learn how to use, or are curious about? Before we all got on, Daryl had a question. He says, I'd like to recreate this effect. I did it in something, and I don't know how to do it. So I sat here and figured it out.
Can you explain the blur? I'm looking at it under layer settings.
Blur under layers settings. Here?
No, 2 down. You were right there. No, 1 more down.
I don't. Oh, blur. Oh, okay. Let's do it real simple. I hope this works. I would assume this softens the edges of whatever the effect is doing. So you can't see the wording because it's blurred. This adds a different level to whatever effect you're trying to create. Let's do that with Morph and see how it's blurred. Here's the solid Morph versus the blurred Morph.
That is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
So if you're trying to soften something, then that's the way to do it. That's kind of like taking an eraser and not making it so harsh. Good question.
Okay, cool.
Anybody else got questions? Don't be afraid to put your hand up and ask. This is the best time to do it.
Clyde, can you show us how to save a preset and then maybe possibly how to export it? Or
Sure.
Thanks. I know Steve Styron sells some presets, and I'm not sure whether it's easier just to take them from Superstar sequences or buy some from him, or how to save them on our own.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier about doing a preset. Here, I'll do this is that morph that I had earlier. I'm just going to take it, I'm going to rotate it 4 times, and then we'll create it, and then we can export it. This layer setting box over here is amazing for taking an effect and rotating it, so you can have some interesting changes with the effect just by adding, copying, and pasting. So that's something. I mean, it looks neat, and I not that you would think that that's the greatest bit of sequencing in the world, but if you wanted to, you could create some really cool stuff just by changing the colors once again. Changing the colors once again, select all, change the colors, update. And then you can also chase it. So once we get to, there we go. And
now, how did you do that, Clyde?
The chase?
Yeah.
How did you do the chase? Okay, well, let's finish with the first one. I'll show that. So here we have our effect. I'm just going to select all. I'm going to right click, go to Effect Presets. To create a new preset, we have everything highlighted already. We can create new preset. Let's call this the hashtag. So that's saving a preset. Now, to export the preset, you just select the preset that you want exported, click on the export, and notice where it's going to send it to. This is the last known directory that I was playing with. If I go into my Dropbox and go to Nutcracker, and I'm just going to put the number or the letter Z, so it should show up at the very end. So it's going to save it as a .x preset. If I click Save, and then I go and open up, if I go and open up my xLights directory, it should be, if I order this by, it should be somewhere in here. X. Let's change the file type. X schedule, X model. It should be a preset. Export, let's try it again. Oh, it's in my Dropbox, that's where it is. Ah, that's why it won't show up. Dropbox. Next preset right there. So what you would do is, if you were sharing this with somebody, so I'm going to share this with, what's the most recent thing I did today was, I did the P10 panels. So let's go into the P10 panels. Let's paste the preset there. Now I'm just only going to go and I'm going to close it out. I've relocated it. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to close sequence. Whoop. File. Close sequence. And I'm going to change my directory to that directory where I just saved it in. Yeah, you can save that. Okay. And if we go in and we open up the one and only sequence I have in this directory, we right click and we go into Effect Presets. Once you're into your other sequence, if you had shared this preset with somebody, you would click on Import, and then you would find the preset wherever you saved it as, which I saved it in this directory already, and click OK. And it should go into Effects Presets, double click hashtag, and if you've got one single timing block, let me insert multiple layers below. And if you double click on it, it should come up. So that's exactly how to go from start to finish with doing an effects preset, then exporting it, and then importing it into your own. Now, be aware that if there are some effects that are shared, some presets that are shared, some of them may not render the exact same way. This happens to be a P10 panel. It can pretty much render anything from the megatree, but if there is an orientation or a size of a matrix that is vastly different. Now, Tom and I learned this whenever I shared a preset with him, that I had to do a significant amount of changing just to get the effect to look similar to what I had set it on my megatree. My megatree orientation was 50 tall by 32 wide, and he was placing the same effect
360.
on,
it was,
what was that, Tom?
also 32
How big
strips,
was your...
but Mega Grid. Well, I put it on my
No,
Mega Grid.
you placed it on your mega
between your
mega
Mega
matrix
tree and my Mega
Yeah.
tree, in our orientation, mine being 360 and yours being a 180, I believe, that it did make a significant difference in the application of the effect on the tree.
Mm-hmm. So that's just something to be aware of. Whenever you do, when you do take the effect and add it to your presets, it may not render the exact same way that you see it. Just realize that all you have to do is go in and begin playing with whatever the effects settings are and so forth, and that usually will pull you out of the hole. But it does take time. Like it took us, what, about 5 or 7 minutes to kind of get it back to what I had it at on my model versus your model. Yeah.
Hey, Clyde, John has a question in chat about the morph effect.
Yeah, he wanted to know something about the check boxes.
There are check boxes under the morph effect. What are those for? Link points, for example. Okay. Let's lay down a morph effect. Let's
also, there was a question about the chase effect, and that is covered on page 86 of the manual.
Okay, so this is the Morph Effect single, or not single line, but full sweep up. Most people are used to using the quick settings. Whenever you click link points, what it does is it links the start points together. So if we go back and click on the Effects Assist window, oh, this is massive. Look what happens whenever you click points, link points together. So what you're doing is you're just removing one of the start points and you're linking from one individual start point. So I can do the same thing by just clicking a single click here. It links it together, or I can click and drag, and that click and drag, or I can't click and drag whenever link points is checked. Okay, so that's a new one. Click and drag. So you can have 2 points,
when you use
or you can link
a
points.
arch.
On an arch.
Yeah,
I don't have pixel. Oh, well, I have pixel arches, but my arches aren't colored.
It's the same as the single line up the tree, except it's across an arch.
Yeah. So let me just go back to my normal folder. Shake up Christmas. All right. Rob had a good point here. There's he said, how did I make the effects all lean, or how was I able to change them all? And I'm gonna do the on effect for this. This is nothing fancy. This is just the on effect. And if I select them all, you can chase very, very easily by holding down your Alt button right beside your, should be beside your space key on your keyboard. And at the bottom right, if you move the cursor over to the very right side edge, not the left side, the right side edge, and you can click and drag, left click that is, and you can create a chase effect with any of the effects. Now, this won't do anything on the mega tree because it's all on. But if you were doing this, let's say in my exploding stars, I have the on effect. Select, Alt, click and drag. That creates the chase effect that you can't really see it here. Of course, model preview. Model preview, here you go. Ah, doggone it. There we go. So you can chase across a model using a chase at the node level by doing that, or you can do different chases with, you know, different ways to run the effect on the mega tree, like I had done earlier with that hashtag effect. Let's see, what else was there I was going to show you real quick. Any other questions? Did I miss something in chat? Any questions at all? We're going on the 8 o'clock mark right now, and I really didn't want to make this too long, but you're welcome to keep me going, or I can get off of here and let some other folks take over and share some stuff if they want to learn.
Sean had a comment a couple of weeks back that you could take a projector put a matrix on it and then edit it in xLights and then have that projector be an effect. I hope I'm explaining that right. And I'm just wondering if you've done that or if anybody has experience doing that and how you do it.
It's kind of funny that you brought this up because this all deals with the Raspberry Pi, and I don't know how many people are friends with me on Facebook, but right now today I just got my P10 panel working with the Raspberry Pi. The Pi outputs the HDMI at a very good rate. There is another user, his name's Travis Rice, who has physically gone and done this. There is a way to create a virtual matrix. I believe it's in the Pi.
Matrix is where you use
I'm not an expert with this.
just like a TV, and project it up. I didn't know you could do it with the P10s.
Correct. Yeah, well, you don't do it with the P10s, but you do it with the HDMI going out of the Raspberry Pi. But what you would do is you would set up a virtual matrix on the Pi, and it would output via the HDMI cable to, say, a television set that you could put in your window, which is far cheaper than 20 P10 panels, in my opinion.
I guess the question is, what is the ultimate end case? Because originally, when people started doing that, the purpose was not for xLights to be running the video. The purpose was for programmers to say, okay, this is what the video is going to be doing, so we're going to create a virtual matrix within xLights, so that way I say, oh, okay, at 50 seconds, that's when Elsa does whatever the hell Elsa does, and you can match the lights, and then that matrix is not actually output to Raspberry Pi. So is the idea you're saying you want to do xLight effects on a television, or are you saying you're syncing video to xLights?
The television acts as if it's a matrix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The HDMI will put effects out to whatever it is, whatever's receiving it. For example, I know Travis had posted a video. He had done it to a TV, and all he did was he created a matrix in his layout. He physically went in and added a matrix, made it I don't know what size it was. This is the P10 panel I added just to my display today. But he made a matrix that would mimic, and what he did was he went in and he began sequencing it. He made sure that he changed his setup. He added it to his setup tab to set those channels to output to that specific IP address to that Pi, and then the Pi would pick it up and output to the HDMI cable, which would then output to the television set.
So, Clyde, it's Keith, mate.
Hi, Keith.
There are actually a whole bunch of use cases here, right? So the one that Sean often demonstrates is him using a matrix on his preview, which is actually going to be a projector in real life. And as I think Tom said, you're just putting a video on it so you know what it's going to look like, but you don't actually run it that way in your show. And yes, there is a feature on the Pi that lets you create this virtual matrix, and you can sequence to it and it will display on that HDMI output. That's also in the new scheduler in xLights. You can do exactly the same thing. You can create a window which is basically a virtual matrix, and you can display a matrix output on it, and it will scale it up to whatever size it is in the video display. So there's actually a bunch of different use cases depending on exactly what you want to achieve.
My original question to achieve is what I wanted to is create some visual effects in xLights, export it out to a projector, and then shine that projector on my garage door.
Yep.
So
you can do that with either the Pi or the new scheduler in xLights. Can do it as well. It depends on what's most convenient. It depends on what you've got close to your projector.
I would not have a Pi. I would have a Windows 7 computer.
Okay, well, in that case, you would use the new scheduler, and you would put the scheduler into advanced mode, and you would create a new playlist item, which is a virtual matrix. you'd define how big it was, etc. You'd say whereabouts in your sequence. So you create a sequence in your sequencer. So you create a matrix with whatever resolution it is that you want. Don't go to town. Don't try and do TV size resolution because your FSCQ file would end up absolutely enormous. And then when you set up your virtual matrix, you just have to say what start channel that virtual matrix data is set at, and off you go.
Cool.